as well start with myself. Kind of good, aren't I? Experience point 0. Just leave that blank. Alright. So we are... So, just to get warmed up, I figured I would just make myself, and then we can, while people get settled and come into the stream, and while people think of what kind of characters they want to make or they want to see me make. This can be kind of like a character building workshop, I suppose. Alright. Let's... I figured we'll probably be using the standard set for ability scores and the current +2/+1 racial ability score thing where where race choice no longer has ability things. So as an artificer, I don't really need... We can have strength be our dump stat. And we'll start with a +2 proficiency bonus. So it's -1. Actually, this is a little more readable if we do this. Alright, we should put our intelligence at 15. Probably charisma as our 14. Dex as 13. Con as 12. Wisdom as the... not 11, as the 10. Alright. So that's +1 for Dex, +1 for Con, +2 for Intelligence, nothing for Wisdom, and +2 for Charisma. Alright. So I am a... So this character... So since we're starting out by just making myself as a... Alright. So let's think about personality traits, ideals, bonds, and flaws. This is actually the hardest part for me, just because coming up with the proper wording is really difficult for me. So when I'm first making a character sheet, I prefer to focus on the like, even if I have a really good idea of a character in mind, I prefer to like focus on the mechanics first. Oh, I forgot to add the 2 and 1. So let's get intelligence up to by +2 to a 17, changing the bonus to +3. And the 1 we'll put into dexterity, which will increase it from a +1 to a +2. Yeah, so let's start with background. So backgrounds are not all backgrounds work the best, but for this sheet, since it's me, I'm trying to find. Let's see, my background, my backstory, as it were, is that I grew up with only one arm, and so I worked really hard to learn artifice and tinkering as a way of using tools to compensate for that. And I eventually got an apprenticeship and then graduated off on my own. But I still do, I still, like, I have my own little shop where I do tinkering and clockworks and stuff. So in the player's handbook, the background that would most fit is probably Guild Artisan. Which is about being a crafter and being associated with other artisans. Now this background might not necessarily suit a similar character. For instance, someone who crafts things but doesn't interact with a guild, because the feature you get from Guild Artisan is the guild membership, which lets you and as an established and respected member of a guild, you can rely on certain benefits that membership provides. Your fellow guild members will provide you with lodging and food if necessary, and pay for your funeral if needed. A guild hall offers a central place to meet other members of your profession, and which can be a good place to meet potential patrons, allies, or hirelings. So, I don't know if that really suits me well. And so, one thing you can do is actually start mixing and matching parts of parts of the backgrounds, and because the full each of the full backgrounds in the player's handbook are they're just suggestions, really, and there's the section on customizing a background so it better fits your character or the campaign setting. So it's it's just pick one of the features, choose any two skills, and choose a total of two tool proficiencies or languages from the sample backgrounds. And then you can either use the equipment package from one of the background or spend coin on gear as described in Chapter 5. And so, I'm fine with the equipment that the Guild Artisan gives. For skill proficiencies, it gives insight and persuasion. So let's see if those are more social skills and less about the delicate workings of it. So because it's uh, tinkering with very small clockwork and gears, I would say sleight of hand proficiency, uh, and probably perception. And now the perception and sleight of hand is showing someone who is good with their fingers and being very dexterous with their hand, with like being able to handle things. Uh, and the perception is showing someone who can notice the fine details easily. So that fits more with the a specific customized background. Uh, Now the guild artisan comes with the any one language and one type of artisan's tools as its other proficiencies. Uh, so let's pull up the list of languages. In this case, since this character sheet is for me, and I studied under a dwarf artificer who lived. I studied under a dwarven artificer. It would make sense to have Dwarvish as a language, and then for one type of artisan's tools, that would be Tinker's tools. Just want to verify that they're under artisan's tools and not. I know Tinker's tools are in here. Let's see. Yes, Tinker's tools are under artisan's tools. And amusingly, they are also the most expensive. They are, along with alchemist supplies, they are the most expensive, and they are the heaviest, which makes sense because there's a lot of stuff you need for tinkering. So we'll say proficiency in Tinker's tools and in Dwarvish. And everyone has common to start with. However, because I am playing an Artificer, Artificers also deal with tools, so let's verify. Yes, when you are an Artificer, you actually get proficiency with Thieves' tools, Tinker's tools, and one type of Artisan's tools. So if we already have proficiency, and if we're already going to be getting proficiency with Tinker's tools from our class, there's no real reason to get it from our background as well. So then we take a look at the other artisan's tools and the other tools in general to see if there's one that might make more sense. Let's see. There's woodcarver's tools. Now that could make a lot of sense for building the wooden casings for a lot of items. There's also smith's tools, which could be useful for creating gears and nails and things. Cobbler's tools. Cobbling is dealing with shoemaking, but the tools would have a lot of overlap because it involves fine tuning for wood and leather. The glass blowers tools, but what I'm going to go with, I think, is jeweler's tools, because jeweler's tools, well, there are things like gem cutting, which doesn't necessarily fit the character concept. Jeweler's tools would include things like jeweler's lenses and other very finely tuned instruments for dealing with very tiny precious objects. And so it makes sense that I would have jeweler's tools as a proficiency to supplement the tinker's tools. So, now what the Guild Artisan gives you as far as items, I'm fine with that. That is a set of artisan's tools, one of your choice. And because it's dealing with the tools, let's pull up Tasha's Cauldron of Everything to verify if the starting equipment for an Artificer, if it gives us anything. Alright. Let's see. So, being an Artificer will give us proficiency in Thieves' tools, Tinker's tools, any type of Artisan's tools of our choice. However, yes, it does give us Thieves' tools and a Dungeoneer's pack, but it does not give us any type of Artisan's tools. So, here's where, even though we did not get the proficiency from the background, we'll use the background's Artisan's tools equipment to give us Tinker tools. Sorry for bumping the mic so much. Okay, the Guild Artisan comes with a letter of introduction from your guild. That can be easily changed around as a letter of introduction from my Dwarven Master of Artifice. Make sure Dwarven is... Yeah, okay, it's not... They're not capitalized, that's what's going on here. Alright, a set of traveler's clothes and a pouch containing 15 gold pieces. Now, the last part of the background is the feature. As I mentioned before, the guild membership feature is not exactly... doesn't really fit. So we can take a look at the other ones. So we have Acolyte's feature of Shelter of the Faithful. Which is that you can perform religious ceremonies of your deity, and you can call on priests for assistance. That doesn't fit at all. Charlatan has false identity, where you have a second identity that includes documentation, established acquaintances, and disguises that allow you to assume the persona. While this could be useful in, like, gameplay and stuff, that's not something that fits this character. Uh, Criminal has criminal contact, which lets you have a reliable and trustworthy contact in a black market. Now, this one, with possibly a little bit of tweaking, or not even really, like, this one might work because, like, while not exactly criminal, uh, it turns out that performing uh, experiments with automations and prosthetics using uh, it's a bit amoral, and in the culture that I was raised in, I my parents kind of disowned me for it, so I did have to turn to some uh, shady sources to get parts to continue experimenting. But let's keep looking. Entertainer has by popular demand, where if you perform, you can receive free lodging and food as long as you perform each night. Now that could now you could twist that where instead of being a performer, you're doing like free tinkering and repairs to objects, like helping around with things, doing repairs to household objects or things of rare artifice that might otherwise be difficult to come by repairs. Uh, Folk Hero has rustic hospitality. You can find a place to hide, rest, or recuperate among other commoners, unless you have shown yourself to be a danger to them. I don't think that one really works. Hermit has the feature of discovery, where you have access to a unique and powerful discovery. The exact nature of the revelation, depending on the nature of your seclusion, might be a great truth about the cosmos, the deities, the powerful beings of the outer planes, or the forces of nature. Could be a sight that no one else has ever seen. You might have uncovered a fact that has been long been forgotten, or unearthed some relic of the past that could rewrite history. That actually sounds very interesting, especially from a gameplay standpoint. I myself, in my actual life, did not discover any grand secrets of the universe through tinkering and artifice. However, from a gameplay standpoint, that sounds much more interesting than my actual boring life. I would need to work with the DM to determine the exact details, but so far I'm actually really liking that idea. Then we have Noble with the feature Position of Privilege. Uh, you, that's just if you're of noble birth, people will give you respect and stuff. Outlander lets you recall the general layout of terrain and find food and water. And Sage is has Researcher. When you attempt to learn or recall a piece of lore, if you don't know it, you know where to find the answer. Sailor lets you work on a ship to get travel for free. Soldier gives you a military rank, and Urchin gives you secret patterns and flows to cities. None of those three suit me. Sage is close, like in theory, but it's more about like reading books and accumulating lore and information rather than like tinkering and finding things out. So for the background feature, we will put discovery. So I'm also going to put that it's the hermit from the hermit background, and that I need to work with the DM to determine it. So we skipped around. Normally you would choose your background last if you're doing it in order, but because they tend to affect choices you would make in class building, such as the uh, artisan's tool proficiency and skill proficiencies, I like to do them first. So let's see half-elf. Medium size, the size doesn't really matter in 5th edition. Initiative is going to be the dexterity modifier, so we can just put that in already. Speed is 30, base walking speed is 30 feet. We have dark vision, 60 feet. Advantage on saving throws against being charmed. Is against being charmed. Wow, apologies for the misspellings. Magic can't me to sleep. Alright, and we gain proficiency in any 2 skills as a half-elf, as well as knowing Common, Elvish, and an extra language. So I will add Elvish as a language. And then, because it's usually used in ancient, magic and tomes, Draconic is good. However, I think we will choose Gnomish because that's more, because gnomes tend to be more associated with Artifice, and so I imagine there's, well, I imagine in most D&D world settings there'd be more gnome tools of like books on Artifice. Where I grew up, there weren't many gnomes. It was just elves and humans and the odd dwarf. Like, I met, like, a couple gnomes, but anyway. So it talks about adding 2 skills of any choice. So let's look at the Artificer again. So Artificer actually gives us the choice of choosing 2 from Arcana, History, Investigation, Medicine, Nature, Perception, and Sleight of Hand. I think from the Artificer, so I have Perception and Sleight of Hand for our background. For background, we'll do Custom. Yeah, we'll choose Arcana and History. And so then, for the racial skills, we have a whole bunch to choose from. I feel like an investigation would suit me best. And then, other than that, probably medicine, because a lot of my focus was on prosthetics initially. So I learned a lot about how, like, bodies work on the inside, so I could try to emulate that. So even if medicine doesn't really relate to the class all that much, it still is important to the character background. Alright. Then we can move on to the class features. So for an Artificer, so our starting hit point, so our hit dice are 1d8 at first level. Meaning our hit points are going to be 9, which is the maximum roll plus our Constitution modifier, and our hit point maximum is 9. So we have proficiencies in light armor, medium armor, and shields. Oh, hi Electrog. Sorry I didn't get your message earlier. You have stuff to do, so you'll be off and on active here? Yeah, no worries. We have proficiency in all simple weapons. And then proficiencies in our jeweler's tools. Thieves' tools, tinker's tools, and one other tool of our choice. So from using the earlier discussion, I think that will be woodcarver's tools. Alright, and we have proficiency in Constitution and Intelligence. As a first level character, we have a +2 proficiency bonus, so we can start filling these in using our... So it's Constitution plus our proficiency bonus for a total of +3, and then for Intelligence, +5. Wisdom is nothing, and Charisma is +2. I don't have any, since we don't have any particular bonuses to all these other skills, and so it's a little easier to track, I am just going to put in the proficient skills. And there. Because if it's a whole bunch of numbers that tiny, it's really hard to see which is which, at least for me. Your experience may vary. Okay. So, if the Dungeon Master includes firearms and an Artificer has been exposed to the operation of firearms, then Artificers also have proficiency in firearms. However, that would be something to discuss with the DM. So for now, we'll just take a look at this. Alright, our starting equipment includes any 2 simple weapons of our choice. So, I'm going to open up the list here of weapons from Player's Handbook. So simple weapons. let's see. Daggers are useful. Daggers have finesse, so they can take the dexterity bonus. They are light, so we can wield one in offhand, so you can wield them in both hands to get an extra attack by using bonus action, and they can be thrown with a range of 20-60. So for two simple weapons, we will choose dagger. Dagger attack and dagger bonus. Just so here, so the attack bonus is going to be our dexterity plus our proficiency modifier to 4, and then the damage. So let's verify what if finesse lets us change. Yep, lets us use strength or dex for either attack or damage rolls, and it would be the same for both. So the damage type would be 1d4 plus 2 piercing. But then let's check the attack action where it talks about light. Chapter 9, 2-weapon fighting. Two-weapon fighting. You can use a bonus action to attack with a different light weapon that you're holding in the other hand. You don't add your ability modifier to the damage unless that modifier is negative. If either can be thrown, you can throw it instead of make a melee attack with it. So it's still a +4 to attack, but is only 1d4 piercing damage. So even though each only deals 1d4 as a base, because we can get 2 attacks from two-weapon fighting, it makes sense to have 2 daggers. And then I'll just write down the dagger range of 20-60 for that purpose. Then we also get to start with 2 daggers, light crossbow, and 20 bolts. So this would also be +4. Well, let's verify the light crossbow. Yep, is a simple weapon. This one would be +4, and it deals 1d8 plus 2 piercing damage. Wait, let me... because let me verify, because I think there might be something with weapons that use ammunition, and the bonus damage from your stat. So let's check here about ranged attacks. Let's see here. What's interesting is how thrown weapons, you can still use your strength if you would prefer, even if you would normally be using dex for ranged attacks. Let me see. Ability move. Okay, damage rules. Here we go. When attacking with a weapon, you add your ability modifier to the damage. Okay. In some older editions, there was some odd stuff there. So we're just dealing lots of piercing damage here. Like crossbow range. Crossbows also has loading and two-handed. That's not going to come up at first level very much, and for the loading and the two-handed is pretty obvious, so I'm just going to leave that off for now. Now I get my choice of studded leather armor or scale mail. So let's look at armor. Scale mail gives the higher armor class, but maxes the dexterity modifier at 2. My dexterity modifier is 2, so the scale mail is 14 plus our dex, a max of 2 for a max of 16. That's what we would get anyway, so we'll just choose scale mail. Then we get Thieves' Tools and a Dungeoneer's Pack. And a Dungeoneer's Pack includes a whole bunch of stuff that I will not bother writing down. Alright. Then we get Magical Tinkering. I don't want to bother writing this all down at the moment, so I'm going to put Magical Tinkering. And I have the spellcasting feature, which requires in Thieves' Tools or an Artisan's Tools to cast. And then we know I know two cantrips of my choice. And I have 2 first level spell slots, so we'll come down all the way down here. Our spell, our spell attack bonus is our proficiency plus our intelligence. Let's verify. Yeah, spellcasting ability is 8 plus proficiency plus intelligence for the save DC. So that would be a save DC of 13 and a spell attack bonus of 5. Spellcasting ability is intelligence. Spellcasting class is Artificer. We have 2 first level spell slots. Artificers do not learn specific spells, however, they can they can prepare spells each day from the entire spell list. But then let's look at the cantrips. Acid Splash, Booming Blade, Create Bonfire, Dancing Lights, Fire Bolt, Frostbite, Green Flame Blade, Guidance Light. There's a whole bunch of them. So one is Lightning Lure, which I'm curious what that is. I'm not familiar with it. One of the cantrips is Mending, which is what I would be using one of my 2 cantrips on. Mending is just a very useful utility spell. It's pretty important, even if it doesn't help in combat at all. Okay, so Lightning Lure is a lash of lightning energy strikes a creature within 15 feet and it gets pulled 10 feet toward you. I don't want stuff to be near me. So there's Firebolt and Ray of Frost. In my experience, you're more likely to run into things that have a resistance to fire than you are to cold. So for our main magical attack, we will choose Ray of Frost. And we will also choose Mending, as I said before. And that is a character built. Lightning Lure is used for pulling an enemy's melee. Yeah, sorry I didn't notice that before. Alright, so we've made a character. So, let's start a blank one. Chat, do you have any idea for a character? We can how about we start here? What class of a character would you like? What type of character do you want to play? Would you want to make a? Do you want us to make a spellcasting kind of character together? And you guys can be free to use the characters we make, if in your own games if you wish. This is more of a workshop kind of stream. A monk or a druid? Sure. Druids are... I'm not familiar with either of them. Let's choose monk then, since it's not a spellcasting class, and I'm more familiar with the spellcasting classes. How about background? You could lean into the monastic with acolyte or sage. Maybe they're a criminal, or even an entertainer, like someone who uses their martial arts prowess as feats of athleticism and gymnastics. A folk hero, etc. Maybe a sailor. What kind of class do you... What kind of character do you imagine? Would a background fit an ex-knight who decided to lay down arms? Yeah, there's uh so there could be the soldier uh background where you would have a military rank, and like even if you and it could be interesting depending on, you know, how the departure from the knighthood went, that perhaps that didn't go very. Perhaps they might have good or bad relationships with those still in there. Or there's a variant feature for the noble background, which is just called knight, where it's uh, if you're like actual rather than being a just like an armored soldier, you're more of an actual having a title of a knighthood, uh, and where you'd have, ideals of uh, courtly chivalry and the and such. You might have like it describes a retainer who uh, hey, instead of the position of privilege feature, uh, you would choose the retainers feature, where as a uh, since you have a noble background, you can instead have the service of 3 retainers loyal to your family, or in a knighthood loyal to like you and whatever crown you serve. So they are commoners that perform mundane tasks for you. So they can would get your groceries, be your squire, uh, groom your horse, polish your armor. They won't follow you into dungeons or any combat situations like that. But it would get, but it would give you that. Having personal servants doesn't fit a monk super well. No, it doesn't exactly. So, uh, like the idea of being a warrior who's laid down arms definitely points me towards the soldier background, which gives you proficiencies in athletics and intimidation, and gives you a military rank, which you can use as authority and influence to exert uh, your will over soldiers of lower rank and be able to requisition simple equipment or horses for temporary use. That sounds cool. Yeah. So let's do that then. Background soldier. Race. There is there are so many races. There's the default ones in the player's handbook. Elves, humans, dwarves, gnomes, halflings, half-elves. There's orcs, half-orcs, goblins, hobgoblins, bugbears, owlin, aven, loxodon, simic hybrids, warforged, shifters, changelings. there's kobolds. There are more races than I can think of. There's Kenku. There's Tabaxi, who are like catfolk people. There's Minotaurs. Something interesting with Monk gives you bonuses to unarmed attacks. So if you chose something like a Tabaxi or a Minotaur that gives you uh, bonuses to your unarmed attacks, let's do something uncommon that's usually not associated with physical discipline. Alright, there is uh, Gnomes, for one, that comes to mind. Uh, Elves tend to be associated with more uh, yeah, gnomes tend to be associated with like trickery and uh, being like more about like brain than brawn and tinkering and such. Otherwise, in like other books, there's like Vidalcan or uh, and like Aarakocra. Those are like bird people. Uh, let's see. People tend not to think of halflings as particularly physically formidable. Tend to see them as like jovial and laid back. A bird monk who fights with their leg claws. Talons, that's right. Yeah. Sure. Give me a moment. I need to actually go get the book. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. Uh, so there are actually a couple options for bird folk in Dungeons and Dragons. The usual one that people think of is uh, Aarakocra. Those are kind of like uh, bird people with uh, they're kind of like bird people with like humanoid bodies covered in feathers. They have hu bird-like heads, talons, and wings. They tend to have smaller talons on their arms. Their arms tend to be more humanoid. So that's Aarakocra. Then there are the Owlin from Strixhaven. These are uh, owl people who can be small or large, and they have bonuses to their stealth due to their wings being their feathers and movements just being naturally stealthy. Then, from the Magic the Gathering, uh, from the Magic the Gather, uh, and the Owlin tend to have their hands look like the talons on their feet. But then the uh, Magic the Gathering Plane Shift supplementals gave us Amonkhet and Dominaria's versions of Avon. Uh, with Amonkhet having two subraces, the ibis-headed Avon, which which adds bonuses to your intelligence proficiency, and hawk-headed Avon, which gives you bonuses to perception and long ranged attack rolls don't impose disadvantage. But then Dominaria plane shifts Avon uh, give you, yeah, they give you that hawk-eyed skill of perception. So they just have uh, the hawk variant, and otherwise uh, are the let me see. Yeah, otherwise are the same as the Amonkhet Avon. So I'll just close that one. Oh, you'll be back in a few minutes. Okay, I can wait. Welcome back, Electrock. While you're gone, I was comparing the three uh, avian classes, races. The one, I think, only one between Aven, Owlin, and Aarakocra. Only Aarakocra have their talons count as natural weapons, which they can use to deal slashing damage equal to 1d4 plus the strength modifier instead of the normal 1 point of bludgeoning damage for an unarmed strike. You would still be able to flavorfully attack with your talons, and if you could convince your DM to give you the Aarakocra's talons, any of the others, I'm sure it would be fine. Aarakocra also have... I don't have access to the recent book that modifies most of the character races. So in Aarakocra, also an interesting thing about Aarakocra is age. It says here they reach maturity by age 3 and usually don't live longer than 30 years. But so you have a walking speed of only 25 feet, but you get a flying speed of 50 feet while not wearing medium or heavy armor, which is the fastest flight speed of any character race. That of the very few character races that can fly at first level. Okay, so let's put down the talons. Attack bonus, not certain. The damage is going to be 1d4 plus strength slashing. And you start with the languages Aarakocra. Did you say they don't live long? Yeah, it says they reach adulthood at age 3 and don't usually live longer than 30. So they're extremely short-lived compared to other races, particularly with like elves and dwarves, and gnomes, which all live several hundred years at least. sad. Yeah, it's pretty sad. You you'll it's quite possible, depending on the level of an adventure, that your character could just die of old age before a campaign is over. Probably not, but uh where's a place I can write? Here. You like the long-lived races? I like them too. Uh, and so it's really nice to be able to have so much. It must be nice to have so much time at your hands that you can do whatever you want with. Um, so as for ability scores, um, cool queries. I guess alignment. Let me. In older editions, monks had to be neutral, I believe. I don't believe that's. I don't believe any class has that um, as a like requirement anymore, though. Yeah. What kind of alignment? Are you familiar with the Hey chat, are you familiar with the 9 alignment system of Dungeons and Dragons? Lawful neutral. Okay. Mm, neutral. Uh, let's see. So now you get to choose the ability points. The For this example, we'll use the standard array, which is up here. 8, 10, 12, 13, 14, 15. If you follow the quick build suggestions, uh, Monk suggests making dexterity your highest ability score, followed by your wisdom. Uh, at first level, uh, you also gain the ability to be able to use dexterity instead of strength for your attacks and damage rolls with unarmed strikes. So effectively giving your unarmed strikes finesse. I have an idea for the character where they never really met anyone else from the race for a lot of their life. Oh, that could be interesting. Maybe instead of starting with Aarakocra and Oren, they start with uh, different languages of where uh, of the people they spent their life around. Once they realized they never really felt like they belonged to anyone else, they wanted to connect with their ancestral martial discipline. Oh, okay. So maybe they do keep the usual Aarakocra languages. Do you know if you'd rather they be physically Born orphaned in a big city, found bit of home in the military, but only for a bit. That sort of thing. Oh, there is also the urchin background, which has a feature that gives uh, the ability to get around in. You like wisdom heavy monks. Interesting. Okay, yeah, because wisdom affects your chi save DCs. So if you have uh, a high wisdom, it would be difficult to block those. Yeah, wisdom lets them do fancy stuff, right? Yeah, your wisdom increases your uh, chi save, but does not look like it does anything else. Oh, unarmored defense. Your armor, while you are wearing no armor and not wielding a shield, your armor class is 10 plus your dexterity modifier plus your wisdom modifier. So it looks like both go to your armor class. Dexterity is what is going to your attacks, and then wisdom is going. You don't gain chi points until second level, but you can use various chi features by spending chi points. Back in view. Okay. You can allot the stats if you want. Sure. There's also something interesting that I have to tell you about your idea when you get back. So let's do 15 in here. 14. Strength doesn't. Let's have Constitution, and we can have Charisma be a dump stat. Have Strength be a 10, and Intelligence be 12. All right. 10, 14. I forgot the way I usually write it. -1 plus 2 plus 1 plus 1 plus 2, and strength is nothing. Oh, you can still hear? Okay. So starting at 15th level, your chi sustains. You have the feature Timeless Body. Your chi sustains you so that you suffer none of the frailty of old age, and you can't be aged magically. You can still die of old age, however. And in addition, you no longer need food or water. So once you reach 15th level, the growing old very quickly will no longer bother you. However, you will still die of old age eventually before your peers. But you won't decline rapidly, though. Principos plus 2. And then you can get a +2 and a +1 to any stat. So if you want to make it the most beneficial for your class, you could make Dexterity go up by 2 to 16 and Wisdom up by 1 to 16, changing both Wisdom and Dexterity to +3. And that way, you don't have to neglect either of them. And this is a lot better than if we put like the 2 into Wisdom, it would go up to +3 at 17, but Constitution would stay, Dexterity would stay +2 at 15. Unarmored defense. AC equals 10 plus Dex plus Wiz while wearing no armor and no shield. We also have, at first level, monks also have the martial arts ability. While unarmed or only wielding monk weapons and not wearing armor or a shield. Alright, use Dex for unarmed strikes and monk weapons. Can roll a d4 in place of unarmed strike and monk weapon damage. Increases as you level up. And when you use the attack action with an unarmed strike or monk weapon, you can make one unarmed strike as a bonus action. So yeah, like, you already start with the D4 with your Talons, but your Talons deal slashing damage instead of the bludgeoning you normally would, but you could still do the bludgeoning as just like headbutting or punching someone, hitting them with your knee. And as you level up, that damage die will increase until it is eventually a D10. So let's change this to 1d4 plus 3 for your slashing damage here. Proficiency bonus plus the dex, that's going to be +5 to your attack. Oh, yeah, let's grab your armor class of 16. Initiative is going to be +3. Hit point maximum. Monks have a d8, so with Constitution being +1, that'll be 9. 1d8, 1d8. You also start with proficiencies in do birds have knees? And you're good at numbers. Yeah, birds have knees. And Aarakocra also have knees. Uh, let's see here. They also have heads and elbows and the like. Normal birds have elbows, but they're part of their wing, so they wouldn't really be able to like hit someone with them without messing up all the wing stuff. You don't see birds up close much. No worries. Birds are very interesting creatures. I would like to fly someday, but I am afraid of heights. I would not be a very good bird. Interestingly, monks have proficiencies with simple weapons and short swords. They also have proficiency with one type of artisan's tools or one musical instrument. So those can be like basically anything. It's very interesting about monk with a short sword. It's not something I would ever think about. Maracas. Ah, that'd be a really good musical instrument. And having proficiency means that when you use the perform skill on with your maracas, you get to add your proficiency bonus. Alright, you also have proficiency in strength and dexterity. So that's going to be +2 and +5 to this. And you choose 2 skills from among acrobatics, athletics, history, insight, religion, and stealth. What skills do I think? Acrobatics definitely seems in line with the high dexterity and flight and being able to be very dexterous and nimble. And history sounds very much like what you've been determining with how you know uh, uh, getting very into an ancestral ancient form of martial arts. It could be like history could be something interesting for that. And then it could that could represent other bits of lore that you've picked up while researching and learning about your people and their culture. definitely want history. Alright. +3. There's also stealth, which also uses dexterity. You could be a very sneaky martial artist. Perhaps you're more of a ninja. Someone who sneaks around and strikes from the shadows. There's also insight. Maybe you have gotten good at reading, and stealth would be fun and unexpected. Yeah, let's do stealth then. And that'd be a +5. And then you start with either a short sword or any simple weapon. Let's see what simple. Let's see what a monk. Let's see the list of monk weapons. Let me see if there is such a list somewhere. I would assume so. Okay, monk weapons are short swords and any simple melee weapons that don't have the two-handed or heavy property. Non-lethal weapons would be the best. There's quarterstaff or club for if you just want to. Quarterstaff is a fairly classic martial artist weapon, especially for non-lethally knocking people down. As well as just being like a walking stick and being able to be used as a lot of utility stuff. Yeah, you want let's go quarterstaff then. Quarterstaff. Also, something to note. Sure. Okay. Also, something to note when you take your bonus action to make an unarmed strike. When using the attack action, that does not give you the same penalties as two-weapon fighting normally would. Quarterstaff is a monk weapon, so we can use the dexterity instead of strength. And it is 1d6 bludgeoning. Here you go, quarter staff. can use two-handed for 1d8 plus 3. So it has the versatile trait, which lets you be able to use it in two hands and roll the higher die. However, if let me verify here if you can still make your bonus attack if you do so. Wow, yep. Yeah, you can use the attack action and even use the quarterstaff in the example here, and attack with a quarterstaff, and then also make an unarmed strikes bonus action, assuming you haven't already taken a bonus action that turn. And you can do that even if your hands are full, because an unarmed strike does not need to be from your hand, especially if you're using your talons. And so. Apologies for that. And so, yeah, you can wield your quarterstaff in both hands, hit for one, roll a +5 to your attack for 1d8 plus 3 damage, and then use your bonus action to hit someone with your talons for +5, 1d4 plus 3 slashing damage. Or if you want the bludgeoning damage, just use a normal unarmed strike. Alright, let's see. Then you can get a Dungeoneer's kit or an Dungeoneer's pack or an Explorer's pack. I would probably recommend like an Explorer's pack for more general stuff, or Dungeoneer for general, like walking through the wilderness and any kind of like natural environments, and then Dungeoneer's pack if you're traversing like dungeons and buildings and dark cellars and things like that. Since it comes with like a lot of torches and stuff, and both come with plenty of rope, which is the most important tool. You're feeling pretty faint, so you should probably focus on fishing. You're doing sorry. So, okay, no worries. I can finish this up. Alright, so let's start with the Explorer's pack. And then we also have. You also start with 10 darts. Yeah, no worries, Electrock. Take a rest, and I hope you feel better soon. Darts deal 1d4 piercing damage, and they have the thrown range of 2060. So +5, 1d4 plus 3 piercing, dart range 2060. This is actually like a really good build so far. You can do a pretty decent amount of damage of all three basic damage types at first level: slashing, bludgeoning, and piercing. And then let's grab the soldier background stuff. Soldier gives you proficiencies in athletics and intimidation. It also gives you the military rank feature. Alright. Let's get +2 here. +1 in intimidation for charisma. Alright. Then let's see if there's anything else. We're going to get 10 gold pieces from the background stuff. Insignia of rank. Trophy taken from a fallen enemy. A set of bone dice. A set of common clothes. Alright. And then we'll just figure out the last bits here with the personality traits based on what you've said. Let's see. I test violence. How about I detest violence in all its forms and never seek to kill as a personality trait. For bonds, that's easy. The culture and history of my people is important to me. Ideals. Let's see. You've gave up. You're in part of a knight order. Gave that up and went back home. Yeah, let's see. An ideal. I strive to make the world a more peaceful place, but not through warfare. Yeah, strive to make the world a more peaceful place. How about that? And flaw. Let's see, being a soldier does give you proficiency with intimidation. And I could see some of that habit being hard to break. Maybe a flaw for this character is sometimes letting your let's see. Sometimes let my temper get the better of me. Alright, then we've finished a character, and I actually need to go too, so thank you for showing up, everyone, and hope to see you all on Wednesday for more abduction. Take care. Bye. Have a wonderful day.